deficiencies, and those are recommendations. Well, the program team then took all the recommendations and created this spreadsheet tracking mechanism to resolve, to make sure that they're following those recommendations. So this dashboard gives you a snapshot of where they are in resolving all those recommendations, for implementing those recommendations. So right now, I think in your packet, deficiency D4 is all green. Is that the one that's all green?
Yeah.
So that deficiency is going to be closed this month. And there may be a couple more. I'm waiting for some updates from Wendy today or tomorrow. But when each one of those, when all those recommendations associated with an individual deficiency gets resolved and it's green, then that deficiency has been addressed, the deficiency can be closed, and it comes off our list. Any questions? Am I going too fast? I was told to limit my time. This is one of the charts that we use to look at the overall project performance. And right now the data in here is dummy data. It's not real. It doesn't apply to the Motors Modernization Program. I've been here since February, so I can say that real fast. But what we do is we take the earned value management data, and there's two key metrics that we use, SPI and CPI. SPI stands for Schedule Performance Index, and CPI stands for Cost Performance Index. SPI is a way of measuring how efficiently the program is using calendar time, and CPI is a measure of how efficiently they're using effort. So there's a very defined way of measuring that, and then they'll report SPI and CPI to us on a weekly basis, and then we'll plot that point. The green represents plus or minus 10%, and that's what AST wants, the Agency for State Technology. They want to make sure that the tolerances for SPI and CPI are plus or minus 10%. So that's the bullseye. Red means you're either over budget or behind schedule, or both. And there's situations that you need to investigate what's going on and figure out corrective actions. And from an IV&V perspective, we look at a couple things. We look at not only where the point is in relation to this bullseye, but what's the short and the long-term trend. Short-term trend might be 2 or 3 reporting periods, and it might be trending in a negative way. And it's like, all right, we got to investigate that. Long-term trend is over a long period of time, it might be going in this direction here, which means that there's something really wrong with the program. We started to keep track of all these. And we report them out on a weekly basis, and then they get summarized in our monthly reports. And the program team has actually been addressing all our performance recommendations. Some of these have to do with like naming conventions for documents, where you store documents, I mean little things like that. As I said, as IV&V does our work, I mean, we're here every week. We sit in on all the meetings. We get copies of all the deliverables. We provide comments on all the deliverables. And our comments get incorporated into everybody else's comments. And then the appropriate personnel in the program team have to act on the comments. We do our work completely independently. We don't coordinate with anybody other than to get the documents. That's all I have. There's a bunch of other stuff in here. What's changed since the last report. Our overall rating summary, a lot of detail on the open deficiencies. This is all straight out of our monthly report. But we pretty much cut and paste directly into this presentation, and this is what we give every month. Of course, the next month it'll be a lot shorter. I typically spend about 2 or 3 minutes up here. Because once everybody gets used to what we're doing and what they're seeing, I don't have to explain everything. So, do you guys have any questions about anything? Do you think this is a good approach? Is there anything that you would expect to see that you're not seeing, or things that we should be doing that we're not doing?
I don't know that there's any other way you can cover it. Y'all covered it every way that I would imagine.
That's all I have. Okay.
send them the schedule, we send them our spend plan, we send any artifacts from Accenture, et cetera, for them to review after they've been approved. And so one of the things that they asked for during our last meeting was a shared site where we can post all the documents and they would have that archive, trail to be able to access them. And then things get lost in translation with email, et cetera. And so they could go to this one place in order to get their documents. So we work with, I don't know what the name of this is, Service Development Group here. And they
in the progress for those key milestones. And as Gary mentioned before, to make sure that we can get an accurate schedule performance index. So that it shows the trending a lot better by extrapolating that information. And those are the three primary changes. This is just a slide to give you an indication of the upcoming changes we're actually going to have to the baseline schedule. As we're preparing for the next legislative session and preparing for our Schedule 4B
of the contract amendments that we have with Accenture. There, item A here, there was some legal language that we have been working with Accenture on. Yeah, that's for the document. Yeah. There was some legal language that I don't have in that document there that we had to work out with Accenture on the contract. I'm happy to say all of that is solved. We're moving forward. Thank you. Thank you. So we, for a while, we were wondering, would we have a contract? But we are moving forward. All of that was signed. So now, all of that has been resolved. So now the list that you have in front of you are all the things that we need to accomplish for this upcoming year. There's a whole list of deliverables there. There is the first three, I believe, are associated with organizational change management, as Gary mentioned. As we move forward with this system and implementing the systems associated with voters modernization, it's going to be a huge change for the department and the way we do business. Already, I know there's some things that motor services, some new things that they're going to do because of voters modernization. So we've got a plan for that. So we put that on the list of things that we like for essentially to do. Now we've just got to get the price to see if we can afford it. If not, we still have to find some way to get those deliverables done that are on that sheet. There's going to be one of the lessons that we learned this last time. Number one, don't have a deliverable due at the end of June when you know you probably won't have enough time to review it before the end of the year, so we're not going to do that anymore. But to help mitigate that, each one of the, say all of the requirements have to be validated for the new deal issuance system. And Jessica just told you there's almost 800 of those. So rather than having one huge deliverable, we have like 3 iterations of those deliverables. We broke it out by functionality within the system. So you're not getting 800 at one time and asking people to come work nights and weekends to review. Most of them, you missed the old one?
Yeah.
So that is one thing that we're doing as well. Are there any other deliverables? There's some technical deliverables in there as well that we want to make sure that we address moving forward. But that is the list that we will be working. Those are the dates. As you can see, it's still draft. Now that we have all the other legal language and stuff settled with Accenture, we can work now to quickly get prices, because that is what the folks downtown are also waiting on. We're going to update the spend plan with all of that and see where we are. So we're happy that
the June 3rd.
the date that you see there, what we did before was the date that was in the contract was the first submission date.
Yeah, that was the first.
So therefore, the review periods
Having
took
to
us
take in place.
beyond that. Those dates now, which was also finding by AST, are the final submission dates. So in the schedule, we have backed up all of the review
This
cycles.
isn't a review.
No, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I didn't. Sorry.
Well, we might clarify in there too, we've had to amend that language to state there's a submission date and acceptance date. So you'll see the initial submission of everything, and then you'll see that final acceptance date. We were trying to work through some
So like that June
clarifications.
29th is the final delivery.
Yes, that's the date
That's
that
after
we received.
after the review is already
All
over.
reviews.
Okay. Now that
That's
makes
it.
sense.
And it was confusing for folks who looked at our schedule, looked at those dates, and AST says, listen, you need to change that so it's the final date. So
Okay.
hopefully, yeah, if there was something we go, yeah, we're close, but we had to make sure we got enough time, but that is the final submission date. I apologize. Any other questions?
Well, one of the biggest challenges I think the program team is going to have in managing this going forward are changes. Because the constituents are gonna want changes, after you baseline the requirements, various entities are gonna wanna change certain things. There may be policy changes that result as a result of legislative changes. A censure may want changes. So, that's why you alluded to it before about having a very, very strict change management process in place. So that's something that's gonna have to be well published.
And that's what we discussed with the team yesterday, actually.
Which is why also we've got to get out there early and often to make sure we get the word out and people are really reviewing this and making sure. So if there are things, we can quickly, we want to go through the process and make sure they're documented and we escalate those things to the ESC. The ESC even discussed that perhaps at some point they may need to meet more.
For those of us that are in the clearance process. So I really think if their insurance is not on file, that's not something that I would like to see happen on the portal.
We are
For the
putting
renewal
clarification right now, we're adding verbiage to the portal right now to say Florida insurance only, to clarify that, because we are having a lot of problems with that right now on 7 cases where people are not putting Florida insurance, and we are adding verbiage to clarify that it does need to be Florida. So we're hoping that's gonna help. So I'm sure with the new system, that clarification will be out there to clarify Florida, because that happens all the time.
Yeah, maybe one day we can get the companies to tell us if there's a way we can put in edits that won't let them put in.
It'd be nice if part of their company code
Or policy number.
or policy
Right,
number
right.
indicates
Yeah.
Florida.
Florida policy
Correct.
numbers start with a
Yes.
One, two,
whatever, then that would help. But we're not there yet.
All right.
There's no issue or recommendation, we're good there?
I think that's what all you can do right now.
Okay.
POR 12, PPS sent us inquiries, when should this be done is the question. And the new suggestion, the request is to do it before the issuance of a license and portal. So the discussion was whether we would just do it on CDO renewals, any license renewals, or any issuance, including replacements as well. We also.
So what happens at that moment?
Correct.
I get it.
Portal issue 13, minors parental consent withdrawal. And the question there was who should be allowed to subscribe for the, to withdraw parental consent, I'm sorry. So it's the parent that actually gave the consent during the process of when they went into the office or what have you, will be able to withdraw that consent via the portal by submitting the request, and then you go through the normal process of what takes place. Any questions, please?
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
When you have the parental consent withdrawal on the portal,
Mhm.
are they going to verify, how are they verifying that that is that parent that's withdrawing based on the information that the clerk entered?
At the time when they actually are in the office, that's when we're gonna make that relationship. So the customer number of the parent that actually signed and did the consent, we will be able to tell by looking at the record.
Which
This
is
is the
the
same
CDL number
customer.
that the clerk entered?
You can still look it up.
You
You can still look it up. I think you're right, one line.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Good conversation.
Portal 15, same concept, but this was for your elderly parent or any other adult. Being able to subscribe to alerts, the same way as you would for a minor child. So your parent could also have you consent or sign to say, hey, I want them to receive alerts if anything happens or comes in on my parent's record.
Unless they've been adjudged incompetent, there's no reason for somebody to be monitoring their parents' driving record.
I mean, I don't want
And
my
if they've
kids-
been adjudged incompetent for driving, they should have no license.
But the problem, a lot of parents aren't gonna go to the trouble of getting them when they're not.
Can you you still look them up if you have their deal number?
Yeah.
You can treat them like.
On the deal check.
Yeah.
Just a matter of proactive question.
You can look up a status to see if they're suspended, you can't look up the record.
Well, you can buy their driver
You
record.
can buy
You
their
can
driver's
purchase
record.
it.
You can
Yes.
purchase the transfer.
Yeah.
Once a week.
Or have credit.
Yeah.
Now this says that ELT is to make a determination,
We took it a little step farther, I think.
so,
Yes, they come in the right.
It is, they were mulling it over still. No decision was made on the elderly parent.
so what
Is
was,
there
what was the,
a-
that was just to charge the fee?
No, and actually,
You don't need to be driving.
Right.
No.
Is it right, I mean, I just think of it as a policy perspective, is it right to have the kids hawking the register?
Big problem.
They can buy the record.
Well,
You're gonna
and they can,
know.
and then they can medical
Yeah.
review.
Well, and you're gonna, they're gonna know if they can take it or hit somebody.
so are you saying you are in favor, it's your decision, you're not in favor of the elderly monitoring? Is that your recommendation?
That's mine.
I'm not in favor of it. I think if
I don't
there's
think-
something wrong with their driving, you should report them.
Right, I don't think it's necessary, I really
So,
don't think it's
I don't
necessary,
think-
because there's other ways that they can get to that issue.
So,
It's been changed to
That's
replace
very
it.
changed. But I think it's also though, if they, it was something with the original that
Only when you're going
ID.
from a CDL, Class E to a CDL, then that CDL will always be an original
Right.
regardless of.
But I think this one had to also do with the ID card, so
But it is an
Even if-
original ID.
Yeah.
even if they had one before though.
Well, you didn't say that, what you said.
They said they only, all ID cards are always an original, whether it's an original or,
So they're saying we never renew an ID card?
not been downgraded and going back to it, even if it existed.
When you go from an ID to a Class E, it cancels your ID card. So
Oh,
that's
the real ID because
yes,
it
you have to
cancels it
cancel.
out, yes, and that's a real ID requirement that we have to cancel out the ID
Well,
card.
yes, but you don't have to
we
call
may-
it
But you don't have to
original.
call it an
We have to
original.
find it. Or-
Yes,
Resurrect
yes, you do
it.
have to cancel it.
Mhm.
Can't anymore though. I started saying we used to go back to microfiche, but I guess.
I'm showing my age. I'm showing my
And
age.
Steve, what is microfiche?
We'll show you, we'll show it to you.
I used to have to go fishing back in the 90s and find all these people.
so is there a recommendation or anything?
Let us
that we-
look a little bit.
So we're gonna
more.
table, revisit, what is this, QR 16?
16.
Revisit?
All right, PR 17, should the replacement fee be charged when the customer is electing to downgrade with no disqualifications? So currently, I guess if they have disqualifications on their record and they do a downgrade, it's done, no charge.
By statute, there's no charge.
Okay, but the question is, for those who want to downgrade without, should they also be able to do so without a fee?
If there's no
That's your
disqualification
replacement
on
fee.
there.
I would say no, they would have to pay, it's voluntary.
Yeah.
Because the ones that are free now is when they have the disqualification. But if it's a voluntary downgrade, I don't know why you wouldn't charge them at least the
Right.
replacement fee.
Right.
Because they're opting to do it. There's no
Right.
forcing
And
them
actually, you
to
can
do
make
it.
the argument they should pay the full 48, not the 25. But I won't go there.
So, recommendation there is to
25.
25.
31, 25.
PR 18, should we provide an option for express shipping? If so, on which items and how will they be processed? And we actually had a decision on this recently from ELT that we would allow express shipping. We're not sure of the process yet. I think, right, it was decided that it would be on just driver license issuance transactions only because currently they're processed separately. DO work is processed here, whereas for the vehicle transactions are downloaded and processed in the tax collector's office. So for this initial implementation, their decision was yes,
we will provide.
We'll actually have to wait until we have a new card production
Yes.
vendor, because we can't do it with the
Correct.
current SIP system.
Correct.
Okay, and actually there's a POR 19. It was one that was just added recently. So that's been here. With your documents that was added recently.
I mean, it really just comes down to resources and money. I mean, I think we have an obligation to our, particularly Florida, to have at least English and Spanish, obviously. But beyond that, I mean, it just comes down to time and money. That's just me. Y'all may have a different thing.
Unless it's a lot, unless it's a lot easier to change now, it's tough to get it changed in English.
Right.
It's, yeah.
I'm good with 2 languages.
Do you guys have any demographic data to support anything other than 2 languages?
Yes,
College
matter of fact,
campuses, especially.
we're gonna be translating our current knowledge exam is in English, Spanish, and Creole, and we're gonna be adding Arabic, Chinese, and Russian, and then we're gonna be looking at additional languages also.
Would we,
I think that's one of the questions.
yeah, that's what, would we then have an issue that the,
Something else to show that it was cashiered through another system, not through us.
We don't have a third-party cashiering system at this time. We're going to one, so I'm not familiar of how they work that out now. The only problem we have currently is if a customer pays with a credit card, we have to put that in as cash. Because if we put it in as credit card, then it thinks the department's getting the credit card. So that's a problem for those smaller counties that may not ever have a cashiering system, but they have a credit card system. That's something we may want to look at to change, because if there's not going to be state offices open, why not let us use that column as a credit card we're taking in-house?
Or maybe an option to select that you're using another credit card machine to do it.
Do
instead of putting in false
any tax
information.
collectors report credit cards to you all?
No, but we use it for the state offices and the flows.
So, is there a way to say, a column that will be credit cards that you can close off the back, so it doesn't go to you guys? It just says, well, it's what they're collecting in-house, or maybe TCCC, tax collector credit card.
Right, and
Something.
you enter the amount, that way you're not entering false information in cash and then
Right.
trying to figure out why you have
Right.
to type it in.
But it will pick up the corrections as far as the date of birth and name.
Yes, because it's gonna show you the record as it was right before it got cashiered out that first time, and then all you'll have to do is go back to where the name error is, and correct that information, and then submit it again for cashier.
Because right now, we don't see that name,
Right, we don't see it, but we will see it.
but we will in the new one.
Yes.
plan? You all like it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Of course they like it.
I'll still name for that one.
DL 11, move motor voter to the beginning of the application process. And the recommendation was that the page order has already been adjusted for to improve the workflow for the users. So if the customer is not eligible, they're not even going to see the motor voter.
Because now you have to say new, and then answer the
Well,
question.
we've gone over from 6 options or 7 options to only 3 options, and those options are new registration, update/change, and decline. So if you're not even eligible, you won't see
You
that.
just decline.
You don't even see it because it
But
won't
if
be
they've
available
never
for you.
answered that question before,
Well, it's based
Then what?
off of if they are eligible, they'll have those 3 options and they'll select decline.
so if they've already been a felon before in Florida, it will not have them even come up.
Right, or if they're not a resident of the state of Florida, it won't even come in. So you have to be a resident to do it.
But if they're a new resident to Florida, are they gonna have that felony record and make them ineligible, or is that something?
General, did they actually use it? Was it helpful?
Who conducted?
You know the online application?
I do know, we don't ever, 90% of the time when they come in,
Mhm.
it's just easier for us to go through the questions than to read
Right.
through the whole thing anyway, so we don't even use the
Yeah,
survey.
we were gonna survey to see if anybody's using it.
Some of the bigger counties, maybe they do, because they have like,
But you
the
still,
person that
you
briefed them
still
on
have
it.
to ask
Right.
anyway, so, yeah.
Because
Okay.
you're certifying that it's true and correct, and unless you go through that,
Right, and you have to ask
You
them
still
anyway,
have to
so-
ask regardless, so we were gonna do a survey to see if, before we take it down,
right,
we wanna make sure nobody is absolutely married to the process.
right.
Deb, do you know whose action item that was to do the survey, was that
I'm
us?
gonna get with Sharon
Okay, because we'll need
and
to,
send it out.
okay. So DL 15 is, we will, waiting on the, just it says they're waiting on survey?
DL 16 requires the user to select a party on all new and change update transactions. And the recommendation is that customers will be required to select a party for all transactions with mode of order changes or updates, which suggests the ability to display the party affiliation information on the signature pad. So even if they're updating, the Department of State recommended that we ask on every issuance just because they get a lot of people who contact them and say, well, so-and-so who updated my application chose whatever party they wanted, and they don't remember that that's the same party that they chose originally.
The only thing I underlined on that was require. Maybe we should give them the option to change, but not require to change. Maybe have a question to say, do you want to change your party, but not say, I'm gonna tell you, a lot of people don't like saying out loud what their party is
Well,
nowadays.
it's gonna display on the new
On the
signature
pad.
pad, and they're gonna select what they want, so they'll just be required to select
Okay,
one
so
that
that
they
will be on
want.
there.
Mhm.
As long as they don't just say it out loud, I'm good with that.
No, they'll be able to just select it.
So we're good then?
Mhm.
DL 17, email address should be verified so that bad email addresses can't be entered. And the recommendation is that we look into a automated method of validation. So whether that means that we're just gonna check that there's a domain and @ whatever .com, or if there's actually gonna be validation that that's a real email address. We still haven't decided how we're gonna do that.
Yeah, we show, instead of, we show that it's closed, so,
We're going to do the validation, it's just a matter of what solution we're gonna use to validate it.
okay. I believe that was, thank you, we needed to get through that document so we can now determine what we need to take to the ESC. So, any questions, anyone have time, let's see, it's 2:56. Deb, I got you on the
You
number.